Guys, I'm getting a few people saying, why haven't you not reported on BYD overtaking Honda and Nissan? And well, I did. In fact, I mentioned this 6 months ago. I mentioned this 12 months ago. I said it was inevitable that it would happen. And I said that this would happen in the second quarter of this year, but I guess I haven't technically reported on the fact that it did officially happen. So it did officially happen. Here are the numbers. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. I want to say a big thank you to our Patreon supporters, YouTube members, and to Resync Solar for installing my solar system. If you'd like to use the same company that I used, which I think are the best, I'll put a link in the description. I have no affiliation from them. I don't make any money from them, from anything like this. It's just me trying to help you guys out and also get more people to install solar systems. If you've got a small solar system in your house, I did. I had a really small one, and it actually made more financial sense to replace it and put a bigger one on the roof. But based on the fact that solar systems here in Australia are about half the price now that they cost in the United States, it's just a no-brainer to have a big solar system on your roof, particularly if you own an electric car. So BYD, obviously, as you're probably aware by now, overtook Nissan and Honda in sales last quarter. BYD will soon pass Ford as well. And what is amazing about this is the fact that BYD does not sell internal combustion cars. Yeah, they do have plug-in hybrids, which technically have a motor in them, though you can drive them as an EV only for, depending on the model, between 50 to 200 kilometers. Now, what I think people are saying, here's a headline. If the trend continues, BYD will very soon overtake Ford, and actually, I think that should be amended. That should be, if the trend continues, BYD will overtake Toyota and the Volkswagen Group. That's what I believe will happen. It's going to take a little while because BYD's global expansion has hit a bit of a stumbling block. Yes, they're doing really well in places like Brazil, for example, places like Israel, Australia, Thailand. They're doing really well in certain places, but obviously the tariffs being imposed on them in Europe has slowed their plans down a little bit. They'll have to wait until they have their Moroccan car factory, their factory in Mexico, their car factory in Hungary, I should say. They're going to build a car factory in Turkey. Probably going to take them a couple of years until those factories are built, and then they can really go after the European car market. Anyhow, BYD sales have skyrocketed this year, increasing by 40% between April and June versus the same months last year. They've now sold they've now sold over 1 million vehicles this year. They're actually on track this year to sell around 3.5 million vehicles. So this increase in sales, well, we're really in correlation to Honda and Nissan's decline in sales has meant that BYD have overtaken those two car companies. By the end of this year, I believe actually BYD will have overtaken Ford, because keep in mind Ford's also shrinking as well. And the key reason all these manufacturers are shrinking is, well, one, they don't make enough electric cars that are affordably priced. They try to, but they're losing too much money on them, so they don't want to make too many. And the other reason is because that they're all shrinking in China. And China is the biggest car market in the world by a big margin. The United States, you guys, you're the second biggest car market, but you're nowhere near as big as China. Nowhere near, not even close. Generally, the US, about 15 to 16 million cars are sold a year. In China, it's around 26 to 28 million. It's an enormous difference. You can see why Ford, General Motors, Honda, Nissan, they're all going to be overtaken by BYD, not just Honda and Nissan, but also General Motors and Ford, I'd say within the next 12 months. Last year, BYD was the 10th largest automaker in the world. Now it's jumped to 7th, but I'd say based on its current sales, its sales last month, it's probably closer to 6th. Speaking of last year, 10th place, BYD was in 10th place last year. Guess who is now in 10th place? Who's overtaken Mercedes-Benz? Geely. And the reason Geely have jumped up to 10th place is because of their electric car sales. The fastest growing car company in the world is Zeekr. Those Zeekr, obviously their EV sales have contributed enormously to Geely's rise, but it's also been EV sales from companies like, well, plug-in hybrid sales from obviously Lynk & Co, but EV sales from Volvo, from Polestar, from numerous car brands under the Geely automotive umbrella. Obviously, Geely have their new brand called the Radar RD6, or the Radara as it'll be known outside of China. Then they've also got the actual Geely car brand themselves, which is new as well. To put BYD's success though into perspective, the only Japanese automaker to have sold more vehicles than BYD in 2024 is Toyota. Pretty clear what's happening here. Geely and BYD will probably overtake every automaker in the world. I think that's likely to happen. Toyota landed in first place so far this year with 2.6 million sales. Next will be Ford. Ford are only just in front of BYD based on sales for the entirety of this year. But if you actually look at sales for the whole year, this will change very, very clearly. BYD will be bigger than Ford by the end of this year because BYD relies on the Chinese car market. The Chinese car market is about twice the size in the second 6 months of the year versus the first 6 months of the year. That's just historically what's happened in China. It's been like this now for decades. The automotive industry sells twice as many cars on average in the second 6 months of the year versus the first 6 months. So it's very clear that seeing as BYD are only just behind Ford, they'll overtake Ford easily by the end of this year. But the question is, when will they overtake General Motors? Obviously, General Motors is a fair bit ahead of Ford. Ford sold 1 million cars for the first half. General Motors was 1.3 million. Sorry, not the first half. I meant to say the second quarter of this year. BYD's success, is it overseas? Is it in China? Well, predominantly BYD's growth has been in China, but it's true that they have grown a bit overseas. Around 4% of China's total 2.8 million vehicle exports were BYD vehicles. 105,000. So BYD exported 105,000. About 10%. But that does mean BYD have nearly tripled their exported vehicles so far this year, in spite of the fact that obviously the US has basically banned vehicles from China, and also Europe has made it very hard for them. So BYD's tariff is about 18%, plus there is a 10% fee as well for all manufacturers to export cars into Europe, so it's about 28%. Tesla's now is about 19% in total, including that 10% fee. So yeah, it is pricey for BYD right now to sell cars in Europe, and you can see why they're trying to quickly build those other factories to support them. So a lot of the automotive industry have said the Seagull, the BYD Seagull, is the automotive industry's tipping point. It's the point where they tore apart Detroit. I don't know, I'm sure you've seen this. These videos have been going viral. Detroit tore apart the BYD Seagull, and their minds were blown on how great it is, and they realized it was going to destroy the entire automotive industry. Rah, 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 rah. All these sensational headlines. That's all a complete crock of shit. Whoever made that up, wow, genius, because they've made a lot of money selling you that story. The Seagull, yeah, it's a good car. It's irrelevant. No, the truth is, sales of micro cars are minuscule worldwide. It's a very, very small percentage of car sales in that micro segment. It's certainly not profitable. It's certainly not something Detroit could care less about. Detroit's zero. Detroit has, and to be honest, almost every automaker in the world has very little interest in selling cars in that segment for $10,000. They don't make much money. It's almost nothing. Profits are minuscule. Their segment's small. The truth is, it's things like Tesla's structural batteries, it's gigacasting, it's stuff like that. New batteries being put into vehicles, new skateboards coming from companies like CATL. If you've seen CATL's new skateboard, new motors coming from GAC, Aeon with 30,000 RPM and incredible efficiency. It's a combination of all these things. That's what Detroit's scared of, not the BYD Seagull. What a load of garbage. That's utterly nonsensical. If you combine the continued price reductions of LFP and sodium-ion batteries with the increase in energy density. If you combine the companies like CATL, who have a monopoly on the battery industry, along with BYD, the fact that their technology has improved enormously, and they're now offering manufacturers an entire skateboard. You just build your car on top of it. You don't have to do anything. That is concerning. There are so many technologies going on, and they're not simply found in the freaking... There's nothing in the Seagull that's revolutionary. It's a good car, but it's certainly not really all that interesting to automakers. But BYD's technology is, what is impressive is their vertical integration. Their ability to manufacture almost all the parts going into the car themselves. Their ability to manufacture their own batteries at a very, very low cost. Now the second biggest battery company in the world. The new Blade battery version 2 will have much higher energy density. I believe 185 watt hours per kilogram energy density. That's about 23% higher than the previous generation or the existing Blade battery that you can buy now. That is game changing. That makes a huge difference because apparently the cost to make those batteries will be similar to BYD's cost to make the existing Blade battery. That would mean, therefore, the cost for their new batteries will be 24% lower than their existing batteries. That is game changing, because think about it. Can General Motors say the same thing about their Ultium batteries? Can even Tesla say the same thing about 4680 cells? Potentially with their dry electrode process that will help them to reduce costs. But realistically, the Chinese manufacturers like BYD are moving incredibly fast in multiple ways. That is what is scary. Thanks for watching.